Well, we're glad to join you today for a discussion, Dr. Terry Young and myself. And we want to talk to you about when you're in the middle. CREST is all about people at midlife, and there are the natural wonderings that come at the midlife stage. But when you're in the middle of the COVID-19 kind of experience, those feelings are even more pronounced, and we can feel like we're in the middle of a storm. And so today, I was talking with Dr. Terry Young about some research that you had come across, Terry. So give us some insight here about this middle time.
Yeah, it was a discovery I made of a project out of Harvard, and the researcher's name is Todd Rose, and he developed a dark horse project. And you can actually Google that, dark horse project, and what you'll see on their website is the image that we're going to provide for you, which is this idea of a person emerging out of a sculpture, and this idea of emergence. So the dark horse project was interviewing and talking to people who, for the most part, were at a point in their life where they were at middle age, many of them, and beyond. And the question was, how did you arrive at where you are today? He was trying to explore the idea that we've got this sort of general concept of how life unfolds. N.D. Wilson, in his book Death by Living, says we've got a North American idea that says we're supposed to live sort of foolishly and furiously when we're young, and then when we're in midlife, we slave away slavishly. We focus in on career and so forth, and then we coast into low impact living when we have enough money to retire. And we also have an idea that our careers and vocations are plan and implement things. We plan when we're young to be something, and then we implement it, we become that. What he discovered in the Dark Horse Project was that of the 50 people they initially interviewed and told their stories, 45 of them, when they interviewed them, were quite embarrassed in telling their story, because they said, my story was not a plan when I was young and then I implemented it. It was, I sensed things along the way and then I responded accordingly. And I'm at a place today I never would have imagined I would be when I was younger. He's countering the Tiger Woods idea that, our careers and vocations are, we pick up a golf club when we're 3 years old, and then we just continue to golf and we become a world-renowned golfer. He said those stories are few and far between. Most of our stories are this meandering, circuitous kind of path where we're sensing and responding along the way to what is my story. And the Dark Horse Project is telling these stories of how people have moved from, it's moved through life with quite a novel journey. And I think that's encouraging.
That is.
In life, we wonder, well, am I in a mid-course correction? Is that a bad thing? No, it turns out that's how most life courses unfold.
That's really good news, actually, because that's one of the things we hear all the time when at CREST is when we have people tell their stories, is that, I didn't think I'd be at this point in my life where I am right now. And I am not sure where I am going. And there's a bit of an angst about this. Like, shouldn't I by now be really clear about where I'm going, what I'm doing? And the study is kind of interesting to say that most people actually don't know.
Yeah. And we had talked earlier about that Wendell Berry quote. I don't know if you have it on hand there.
Well, let me pull that up and just read that here. Wendell Berry says, "It may be that when we no longer know what to do, we have come to our real work. And when we no longer know which way to go, we have begun a real journey. The mind that is not baffled is not employed. The impeded stream is the one that sings."
Yeah.
Well, that's a good quote.
It's a great reminder that it is in midlife, and right now in the middle of this storm we're in, we're being introduced to our real work, which is to engage fully, to not fall into the wrong kind of zone for the time in which we live, whether it's midlife or the middle of the storm of COVID-19. And there are some zones we can live in. And maybe I could go on and sort of deal with the
Yeah.
fact that when we ask the question, we're asking the question through this webinar, what is the zone that I will choose to live in, and you'll choose to live in? And there are fundamentally four zones we can live in when we're in the middle of something. The messy middle, even of midlife, or the messy middle of this COVID-19 experience. Um, and we'll provide you a visual portrayal of this, but the first zone is the zone of fear. And there are a lot of people living in the zone of fear right now. And in that zone of fear, they're frozen. They're stuck. Um, it is for so many people often the starting point on so many fronts where fear and negativity, pessimism is at play. And when that takes hold, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. That fear, false expectations appearing real, as someone has defined fear. Those false expectations, they appear real. And guess what? We end up stuck in pessimism, stuck in negativity. So that's one zone we can live in. We've discovered within Crest that sometimes people come to Crest, whether it's our cohort or our MCL after they've done the cohort, and they will admit, they'll confess that when I got in the middle of my journey, not knowing quite what to do, my initial sense was I'm scared. I don't know what to do, but they've realized that's no place to stay. So this is where the second zone comes in. And the second zone is the zone of awareness, or the zone where we begin to come awake. We wake up to the fact, I have some learning to do. I better pay attention. And we deepen or broaden our sense of the things that induce fear or the landscape of threat that is before us. And we see deeper and in a broader way. And the challenge here is that in that awareness of waking up, we can also get stuck there because we're not locked up in fear, but we've come awake in a sense, but we're paralyzed by the analysis of everything.
Mm-hmm.
We may be learning more, but we're not putting it into action. We've got ideas, but we're not putting it into life. And this is where the third zone is moving from awareness. You've got to move your awareness into growth. And growth is the pivot move that makes the difference. It's an awareness that leads to action, and that action, perfect as it might be, is what leads us to grow. So we move, we begin to apply, we begin to put our ideas and goals into daily, weekly actions, and we plant some seeds, and we maybe discover that seeds don't grow. We fail, but we get up again and we keep growing. And in that zone, we know that that's where we're wrestling with what one writer refers to as the narrative strain. And the narrative strain in our life story is this strain that we feel. We know what is inside of us, and we know what's in our heads and what's in our hearts, and yet we know what we're living is out of sync with that. This is part of the crisis of midlife, is we're coming awake to the fact that there's a lot of things I've learned and I know and I value and I believe, but am I really putting that into the future part of my story? And that strain is actually a very good thing. It leads to
Yes.
growth.
Yeah. And I've noticed that it doesn't matter if you're a business person, ministry person,
Right.
you're on the same journey.
Yeah.
You'd think that, pastors would have this all together. And
Yeah.
no, we're human beings just like everybody else.
Yep.
We're all on this kind of a four-stage journey that you're describing so well here, Terry. It's
that fourth stage,
so true.
The fourth stage then is helping others, or you might use the term leading others and leadership. And many who engage with Crest, we sense that many of them have a deep down desire to be in the zone of growth. They want to make sure that their ideas and their dreams and their goals and the future story has put on flesh, or it's flesh is being put on so that they can live well.
Yes.
Not for their own purpose, but at midlife and beyond midlife, what Walter Wright refers to as the third third of life. So we have people who come and they're in midlife. There's some who come to Crest and they would say, I'm not at midlife, but I'm at the third third.
Yeah.
We're asking deeper questions about what does my life mean by way of giving it away? And we
Yes.
realize I don't want my life just to be about a growth project for me. I want to grow for the sake of the world and for the
That's
sake
right.
of others. And so that's that fourth zone. We find Crest is a beautiful opportunity and an environment and community and ecosystem where people who want to grow and people who want to help others and lead others, that's where their heart's beating faster. So
That's right.
in the middle of life and in the middle of the storm, you can look at this sort of zone portrayal. And the great need is for us in our influence circles to move people into regions of growth, so as to help others, lead them beyond awareness, beyond just merely learning about all the stuff that's going on. What does it mean for me to do the real work of my soul? And we deal with the matter of adaptive leadership in Crest, and the MCL, we really lean into it in a deeper way in the MCL week. Adaptive leaders, the genius of adaptive leaders is simply this. When we don't know what to do, we actually do know what to do. We learn.
That's good.
And in the times in which we're in, one of the things we need to ramp up is let's learn so as to grow. And out of that growth, there's going to be the strength and power and authenticity to help others.
Yeah,
So,
that's
yeah.
good. I read a recent study that was done right during the COVID-19 time, and I believe the research said that 67% of all Americans are hoping that they can learn something during this COVID-19 time. So the natural instinct when we hit this isolation or this wondering is we want to learn. Our learning curve goes up.
Yeah.
And that's a great instinctive reaction to a time of being in the middle or feeling like you're kind of stuck.
Right.
And so the question is, what's the optimum way to learn? So
Yeah.
it really does come down to two choices. You can just keep on learning by yourself, just figuring it out, or you could maybe join with other people who are learning and with coaches who have been on this journey a little bit longer than yourself and who can actually guide you in the path of reflection and discovery. And that's exactly what we do in Crest. Our purpose and our zone that we love to work with is people at the midlife and in the second half, because we have found that you who are in that demographic want to learn. You want your life to matter. And you're willing to invest the time and the effort and the finances to really make that difference. And that's why we just love having students like people in the second half and middle of life come to Crest, because, man, we have the conversations and the reflections that comes out of this is just so good.
Yeah.
That it's a joy for Terry and I to do the Master in Christian Leadership, the MCL. For those who would like to go on to do that. And we just invite you to come and take a look at this journey. So the question really does boil down to, well, what is my real work at this particular time in my life?
Yeah.
And it's going to be unique to each one of you, but that's a very good question to think through right at this time of being in the middle of it all.